Kathy Hochul is luckily attacking the Cuomo campaign, being like, doing unrestricted Islamophobia. He's buddies with the guy who said America deserved 9/11, also with the unindicted co-conspirator to the World Trade Center bombing. Again, I love that the response to Islamophobia is just more Islamophobia. Okay? The response to Islamophobia, like the response to the bigotry represented by Andrew Cuomo, is just bigoted people turning around and being more bigoted. Oh, excuse me. I'll have you know it's actually perfectly valid to say he wants to do global jihad and he loves 9/11. After all, he's with a prominent progressive Twitch streamer here who's talking about the concept of blowback in 2019. And he also loves 9/11. Here's another Muslim guy that I also am suspecting of loving 9/11. It's ridiculous. Maybe it's because I with you, but is it worse than post 9/11? I didn't live in America in the immediate aftermath of 9/11, so I can't speak on that. But this is the, like, I came to the United States of America when I was 18 in 2009, okay? And I don't know how bad it was for everyday Muslims in like 2001, 2002. I suspect it was worse. But from 2009 and onward, this is been the worst Islamophobia has gotten. I can't speak for pre-2009. I suspect it was very bad the closer you get to 9/11. But since 2009, I can tell you, yes, Islamophobia has gotten worse in the United States of America in the last 2 years. I wouldn't say that it's as bad as it was in 2001, though. I mean, come on. Americans broadly decided no more need for civil liberties after 2001. That's how horny they were to punish every Muslim. And for the record, before people say, this is not racism, because I brought this up. I talked about how, Islamophobia is a different version of racism because it's racialized. And people's immediate response, like we're all the way back in like 2016 or something, where people are like, excuse me, Islamophobia means a fear of Islam. I don't fear Islam. I just want to kill them. And actually, it's perfectly valid to fear Islam. Also, how can you say this is racism? Because obviously, it's not racism at all. It's just a religion. And it's like, okay, it is racialized. That's precisely the reason why the first victim after 9/11 of an Islamophobic hate crime was not a Muslim man, but a man wearing a turban. He was Sikh. So how can you tell me it's not racialized? What do you mean? It's so stupid. Trump starting another weekend war. Ay, ay, ay. Okay, look, we're gonna get back to that in a second. I do want to talk about this because I haven't seen a lot of motion from the Democrats like coming after this, like retaliating against Andrew Cuomo, who is behaving in an incredibly racist manner right now. Okay, both last night and this past week, he's gone extra hard. Okay, extra hard, including bringing my name up, as we saw in the press conference earlier this morning, where he's like, "Oh, you don't get it. I'm not being bigoted. I'm not being racist. I'm actually, I actually just think Hasan, another Muslim progressive guy, wants 9/11 to happen." That's what it was. But all of this, every single person running for mayor and the current mayor have now talked about you on the campaign trail. I know. Do you think this will help his numbers or not? No, it won't. It obviously will not. It's still annoying, though. It's still annoying. It's still incredibly annoying. And also, most likely, it's dangerous. Very, very dangerous. Okay? It's dangerous for the Muslims living in New York. It's dangerous for Muslims living all around the Western world. That's how it works. It's the same principle behind racism against black people. It's not directed just at that one singular black person. It's directed at all black people. That's the whole point of bigotry. That's the whole point of racism. You are dehumanizing by elevating the stereotypes of certain people. Getting back to this, though, Zohran Mamdani was discussed. Andrew Cuomo, this is a Politico article that also mentions me as well, but Cuomo suggests Mamdani would cheer a future terror attack. This is, I think, such a spectacular, overwhelmingly racist line of attack. It is so clear what this is. Now, he went on Sid Rosenberg's radio show, and Sid Rosenberg is a very conservative Jewish radio show host, and they had a back and forth on this radio show where they were talking about Zohran Mamdani and 9/11. Here's what took place.
Morning, there's a crisis. And people's lives are at stake. God forbid another 9/11. Can you imagine Mondami in the seat?
Hey, I could. He'd be cheering.
Yeah, well, it's another problem. But can you imagine that?
No.
Listen. Mondami was in the seat on 9/11.
Yeah.
What would have happened in the seat?
Oh, come on.
Just straight up saying, like, he'd be cheering on the 9/11 attack if he was the mayor, if another 9/11 was happening. This is the most transparent version. This is the most transparent version of racism. Like, it's such an overtly racist thing to say about a Muslim candidate that any sort of comparison to any other marginalized population that I would invoke would, even by pure analog, would make me look like I'm an unrelentless racist, which is why I'm not going to do that, right? But it's like you can figure out exactly what the equivalent would look like if they were talking about a black person, okay, and the white supremacist stereotypes in regards to a black person, or if they were talking about a Jewish person and the anti-Semitic stereotypes that surround Jewish people, even including 9/11, ironically enough. Because there are plenty of people who think Israel and Jews were responsible for 9/11. And if Zohran Mamdani was a Jewish candidate and Andrew Cuomo, an Italian man, went on a right-wing broadcaster show and turned around and said, like, well, can you imagine a Jew being in charge of New York when 9/11 was happening? I mean, he would just cheer it on. He would do it again. He would tell all of his friends to leave the towers before the planes fell, like before the planes hit it. Like, that would be a career ender, right? That would be a career ender. And the anti-Semitic conspiracy of the Jewish connection on 9/11 is a lesser known one as opposed to the direct Islamophobic conspiracies, which is why I don't feel as scared to even bring it up, as opposed to something about black people or something more nefarious about Jewish people that is broadly known, like a more nefarious stereotype. I'm not going to do it. Proceed to do it. No, I even explained why I don't feel as worried bringing up that as a counterexample as opposed to something else, right? It's something else would look like blood libel. But because, and every person of marginalized background in this community and across the board knows exactly what this is, what I'm about to explain. Sometimes dealing with bigotry of this sort, if you're a woman, if you're trans, if you're black, if you're brown, is doubly because not only do you have to make the mental calculation of whether or not you have the time or the energy to expend to address the racism, you also have to literally think, well, what if the rest of the audience that's listening to what this asshole has to say agrees with him? That is one of the most nefarious aspects of having to consistently combat with bigotry of every sort. Because let's say you're a black person and the person in front of you said something objectively white supremacist, right? As a black person in that moment, you go through the process of, do I check this guy? Do I explain to him that he's being racist? Is he even going to be receptive to me checking him? Or is there going to be an even more aggressive reaction as a consequence of me checking him? And worst of all of the people around us that are hearing this conversation, will they actually side with me? Are they equipped with the knowledge of what white supremacist dog whistles look like? Or are they actually going to side with him and assume that I'm an angry black man who's just complaining for no reason? Okay? It is doubly socially isolating to have to go through that mental calculation every step of the day, every day throughout the week. It's really up, okay? And it's one that women have experienced in terms of dealing with misogyny. It's one that black people have experienced in terms of dealing with white supremacy. It's one that brown people have experienced in terms of dealing with bigotry. And it's one that trans people experience as well. This is a part of understanding intersectionality, okay? This is unfortunately how it works. And cynical actors such as Andrew Cuomo and Eric Adams will lean into that. They will lean into broad majorities finding Islamophobia to be totally permissible. And I don't know how to deal with that. I don't know how to check that. I don't know. And that's precisely the reason why a lot of people just kind of let it slide. A lot of Muslims let it slide. A lot of black people let it slide. A lot of women let it slide. Because after a while, you're like, well, what am I supposed to do? I can't do anything. And in that process, people become way more, in that process, the victims of these sorts of bigotries become more aggressive. Okay? They have a hair trigger. It's from that exhaustion of constantly trying to prove your humanity to others who just don't want to see it, who don't want to hear it. And the knowledge that even people that you have perceived as your allies up until that very moment could turn on a dime and also see you in the exact same way that this white supremacist sees you is a terrifying prospect. So a lot of people just like refuse to even address it out of fears that they're going to see someone that they have admired or liked up until that moment, say something that caused them to recalculate. Like, have you seen me as this being this entire time? As someone, finally a good take. Yeah, this is the first time I've ever had this take. Guy who's been called a terrorist by his former counterparts and virtually 95% of the sphere that I'm in the circles that I'm in, for the better half of the last 2 years, doesn't understand what it looks like when he only sees silence from all of the other contemporaries and counterparts. He doesn't understand it at all. I've talked about this quite a bit, of course. Always woe is me, stop. This is unironically exactly what I was talking about. Because every single person that is marginalized in some fashion in this chat knows exactly what this dude is doing right now, where you address it and what happens? You address it and people go, ugh, God, stop being a complainer. Can't even have a brief moment. This is partially the reason why there are places that are ordained as safe spaces. This is not one of them, obviously, but this is it. This is why people are like, oh, why can't we just have a safe space for ourselves? And then people find that to be an act of violence as well. Yeah. Just pulling the race card. Just take something on the chin for once. You do this all the time, though, as an individual from your position. Just take it on the chin for once. Well, I'm talking about a broader context of what people who experience some form of marginalization experience. So I'm glad that you also proved the example of what I was talking about. Even if you briefly mention it, as opposed to just taking it on the chin, as you do 1,000 times a day, there is always going to be a chirper. Okay? You see what I mean? This was the example that I'm sure everyone is aware of. But thank you, chatter. In any case, that was my point. That's why many people just take it on the chin. But there is a downside to that as well. There's a downside to constantly taking it on the chin, because then you have to do this other calculation where you're like, okay, if I take it on the chin all the time, and this is just the tip of the iceberg, right? I only became a follower so I can say this. Hasan is just Brian Griffin. Guy who only can contextualize things that he's seeing through cartoons. Please, I really hope that you're 14 years old and you're just TikTok brained. Because if you're 35 years old and you're still contextualizing things in the real world from the framework of you're just like Brian Griffin from Family Guy, you're not going to make it, big dog. Muslim. Islamophobia is bad. Islamophobe. You're a terrorist. You know what's worse than Islamophobia? Mehdi Hasan says the levels of Islamophobia in this country are off the charts right now. When talking about Larry Elder's post saying Zohran is going to do 9/11, but a communist 9/11 on New York. And God Saad, #1 dick rider, major Islamophobic mouthpiece, says, you know what's worse than Islamophobia? The nearly 3,000 innocent people who died on 9/11 at the hands of an Islamic terrorist, or the 48,000 Islamic terror attacks in the nearly 70 countries since 9/11 alone. People are waking up. I talked about this yesterday, but it bears repeating now. I think there is a deliberate effort by Zionist advocacy organizations that have now come to the recognition that Israel's PR is in the gutter for good reasons, and therefore they can't really defend Israel. So the next best thing that they could potentially do is shit on Muslims and try to turn Israel-Palestine into a Jews versus Muslims, or even better yet, Western civilization versus Muslims style conflict. There are obvious initiatives of this sort. That's why Tommy Robinson, a famous white supremacist fascist from England, flew out to Israel recently and tries to maintain the attention of the right and the reactionary movement on all of Islam's flaws and failures and really beefing up Islamophobia because they realize that even the right doesn't fuck with Israel any longer. And once Israel loses the right, they got nothing left. But yeah, I showed you the Zohran Mamdani statement, like the statement made about Zohran Mamdani. And here is Zohran's response to it.
Before you sat down here, on Sid Rosenberg's radio show, your opponent Andrew Cuomo said this, quote, "God forbid another 9/11. Can you imagine Mamdani in the seat?" End quote. Rosenberg responded by saying he'd be cheering. Andrew Cuomo said, quote, "That's another problem." I want to get your reaction.
This is disgusting. This is Andrew Cuomo's final moments in public life, and he's choosing to spend them making racist attacks on the person who would be the first Muslim to lead this city. And frankly, it's not about me. It's about the fact that there are more than 1 million Muslims who live in New York City. And to have our faith be smeared and slandered.
For the record, this is part of the reason why he can't just like outright say, oh, Hasan sucks, it's not me, when slam with the 9/11 shit. Because there are very few victories there for him. Okay, that's the maximalist position. But he knows where that resentment is coming from. He knows that this is cynical framing, which is why I was a little upset initially with his disavowal of the globalize the intifada narratives. He made that calculation in the moment that it was not worthy of having to defend over and over again. And he just didn't want to have to be inundated with this line of attack. So he thought he could just simply say, oh, well, you know, the globalized intifada thing, I don't say it, I disavow it, blah, blah, blah. It seems like a lot, I've done some learning. It seems like a lot of people, have a different approach to what it is, right? But it didn't do anything. It didn't stop. And just like his disavowal or condemnation of me, if he were to do that, would not stop the Islamophobic line of attacks. You have to, at a certain point, address the exact root cause of why this cynical approach is happening. And he's doing that right now. He's doing that right at this very moment where he says it is the dying last gasp of a desperate candidate that is endorsing full-throated Islamophobic attacks against his Muslim opponent. And the very fact that Democrats are not all incredibly angry at Andrew Cuomo for, one, refusing to drop out of the race, and two, allowing him to basically exist within the Democrat infrastructure while doing these sorts of bigoted lines of attack, not just against Muslims either, but against all different marginalized backgrounds, as we saw in last night's AI attack ad that he crafted, that they quickly posted and deleted. The very fact that a person who is claiming to be a true Democrat, an institutional Democrat on this race, is hitting maximalist, Islamophobic, and racist attacks against the actual Democrat on the ticket is insane. Where are all the vote blue no matter who liberals who claim that Bernie Sanders did not do enough? Even though Bernie Sanders not only endorsed Hillary Clinton, but actually went all around the country at the behest of Hillary Clinton and did the same for Joe Biden as well. I think the broader liberal attitude towards candidates that they previously thought were unelectable or radical is changing. Okay? There is a much healthier attitude from the liberal base towards the likes of Zohran Mamdani and towards the likes of Graham Plattner as well. We shall see how that translates to the Michigan Senate run of Abdul El Sayed. Okay? It seems to me like voters, liberal voters in general, are lockstep with the left flank of the party, where they have now finally realized that actually it is a better electability argument if you are engaging in left populist policy making. Okay? Same shit for how long they stood up for Haitians. This included the media who did the bare minimum in terms of advocating. I know. I mean, that was unimaginable. Like, I could not believe it. You know, you were here. I could not understand how an election campaign got away with straight up saying that black people were eating cats and dogs, man. It was so insane. There hasn't been polling after the skull shit stopped baking. Wait, what? There hasn't been wide sweeping, broad condemnation over even the most irredeemable thing in the eyes of the liberals, which is having a Nazi tattoo. Okay. That's all I'm stating. And we'll see where it goes. All I'm saying is I'm noticing a lack of response from these kinds of severe escalations from the right. There's a lack of response on the left against severely escalating, severely tuned up, racialized rhetoric. So much so that even the likes of Dinesh D'Souza has recognized it. The anti-Indian sentiment that is so perverse and unchecked and unrestrained. So much so that J.D. Vance, whose children are Indian, J.D. Vance, whose wife is Indian, has defended the anti-Indian sentiment of big balls and all the Doge kids and whatnot. And when the Republicans also expand that permission structure of bigotry, what do you think is going to happen? When people have no social cohesion, when people have no social checking around bigotry that is not only exhibited, but just like openly posterized bigotry, a lot of those people are going to feel infinitely more comfortable doing it.
By someone who at one point was considered a leader in the Democratic Party, showcases the fact that bigotry and racism is not exclusively a Republican problem. It is also a problem within our own party. And it is time that we turn the page on Andrew Cuomo and those that would tolerate this kind of rhetoric from him as well.
Yeah, I can hear the passion and emotion in your voice. It's personal for you.
It is. I mean, it just... To describe myself and describe Muslims in this manner, it begs the question of why this kind of rhetoric is acceptable when we're speaking about Muslim New Yorkers. Because all Muslim New Yorkers want is to feel a sense of equality and respect that every New Yorker deserves. And even that is being denied by the former governor.
Don't even try it. Don't even try to get on my lap right now. Be careful. There's a bear behind you. I know. It's terrifying. Yeah. With a dire picture of Mamdani mayoralty, Cuomo plays to voters' fears. What a spectacular way to frame unrestrained and unrestricted racism, okay? Andrew Cuomo is escalating his warnings that mayhem would follow a victory by Zohran Mamdani, even posting an AI-generated video that depicts his supporters as criminals. On Thursday, he urged Sid Rosenberg to imagine Mamdani in that seat if there's another September 11. Yeah, I could. He'd be cheering, he said. Cuomo left. That's another problem. It's just a little bit of, playing into the fears of the voters. I'm willing to bet that if you were to ask voters what they fear more, the actual Islamophobia or Muslims in general, I would suspect the unrestrained Islamophobia would be more like the unrestrained bigotry, not just against Muslims, but against all marginalized populations, all marginalized backgrounds would probably be more of a concern for New York City voters, I think. And obviously that is the case. And that is precisely the reason why Zohran is 20 plus points on fucking Andrew Cuomo from the Wabo. But Hasan defense doesn't make sense. Cuomo spokesman Rich Azzopardi defended Cuomo's remarks, saying the governor was referring to Mamdani's refusal to denounce left-wing commentator Hasan Piker, who once said America deserved 9/11. Cuomo did not mention Piker in that part of his conversation with Rosenberg, and Mamdani has said Piker's comments on 9/11 were objectionable and reprehensible. Exactly. He thinks that's a good line of attack, except I am not a known entity. Okay? He thinks, oh, you guys are saying that me associating Zohran with cheering on 9/11 is racist. But actually, the reason why I was making that inference is because here's another progressive Muslim commentator that I also am associating with cheering on 9/11, a Twitch streamer. Yeah, and it's also additionally stupid because I'm willing to bet I'm probably, for amongst people who know who I am versus know who Cuomo is, okay, because not many people know who I am. But amongst people who know who I am in New York, I'm probably a more popular figure than Andrew Cuomo is. Like, it's so dumb. You just now said you're a Muslim. I'm so happy right now. Yes, obviously these people, when they make those associations, are really leaning into the Hasan Piker aspect of it. No one would actually call into question if Zohran went on Bill Maher's TV show. No one would be like, well, remember when Bill Maher literally said the 9/11 attackers were brave 2 weeks after 9/11? and then said, you know what's not brave? Lobbing Tomahawk missiles from thousands of miles away. That's not brave. You know who is brave? Flying into those towers. That's what Bill Maher said. Do you think this kind of association would be taking place with Zohran Mamdani and Bill Maher if Zohran Mamdani went on Bill Maher's show? No. I wonder why. I wonder why. And when asked to, when called into question his remarks about Zohran Mamdani on the Sid Rosenberg show, this is what he retaliated with.
It was
just like last night when he was asked about directly addressing his victims, specifically the one that was in the room. He turned around and said, oh, why don't you do BDS on Uganda?
a radio show that I was on. I was not the co-host of the radio. I was, yeah.
A guy who was trying to present himself as like the Democrat Party's alternative, even though he lost the primaries, can easily go on a right-wing show and be unrestrained and racist while simultaneously turning around and being like, but this progressive guy who works with the Democrats, okay, me, that association is unacceptable. It's ridiculous.
The host said whatever the host said. All right, that's the host. Those folks are the host.
Okay, the host said whatever the host said. The f do you mean? This entire campaign, you've been like, oh, well, what about what Hasan Piker said in 2019? I didn't bring up 9/11 to Zohran, and Zohran was like, yeah, it's awesome. Let's do another one in our conversation. In your situation, you did that this morning. Asshole.
About that. I said about 9/11.
Yes, I'm the host in this equivalent thing. Exactly. Why is that host wrong and this one isn't? Well, one, because it's a bastardized quote about American foreign policy, and it was in 2019, dumbass. It wasn't yesterday. The equivalence of this being a line of attack would be if I went and talked to Zohran Mamdani and we extensively covered 9/11 and we said, oh, America deserved 9/11, and he agreed with me. That would be a major blow to Zohran's campaign. Okay? You're crazy if you think Mamdani actually dislikes you? No, he doesn't. But that's besides the point. I'm not talking about that anyway.
That's another problem referring to what I have said repeatedly, which is I have a problem with the fact that Zohran pals around with Hasan Piker, who said America deserved 9/11. I did a press conference with Wendy and Sal, the Churchill. Sal is dying from 9/11 illness. 10,000.
Bro, this is such a nutty thing. The host said it in reply to Cuomo saying, could you imagine Zohran being mayor during a terror attack? So they are giving him an out by not mentioning that? I know. Bro, you made it, and by extension, we made it. Bro, I'm on your side, but stop saying 2019 as if it was 20 years ago or something. Brother, what are you talking about? This is him defending his position on Islamophobia today, this morning. And then in defense of that, he's like, well, 6 years ago, 6 years prior to Zohran meeting HasanAbi, he once famously said, America deserved 9/11 when talking about American foreign policy and the impact called blowback, a concept that has academic consensus. Me and Zohran did not talk about 9/11, brother. What are you talking about? This is unironically the same shit that these guys do all the time, where they're like, whoa, I can't believe you went on the Joe Rogan Experience. You know what I mean? Also, what's crazy about it is that Andrew Cuomo's own personal track record is insane in comparison to what he thinks he can attack Zohran over, which is an affiliation with a Twitch streamer whose quote he is unearthing from 6 years ago. Okay? A concept where there is academic consensus on, for the record. Not said in the best possible way, but regardless. One in which there is academic consensus on the concept of blowback. Every moment that is spent relitigating this incident. Yeah, how Politico is reporting. Politico, Piker, who later said his 9/11 comments were inappropriate. Exactly. It's so stupid.
New Yorkers have 9/11 illness. 3,000 died.
Please stop justifying. Please stop trying to justify why not one but two Muslim dudes are being associated with like a promotion of 9/11. That's what he is doing. He is trying to associate and affiliate Zohran Mamdani in the eyes of the voters with 9/11 because Zohran is Muslim, okay? He is trying to find a logical through line to do that within the confines of permissibility without directly saying Zohran would love a 9/11 to happen. Except the problem is he did literally say the quiet part out loud this morning, okay? And now when people are calling into question why he did that, he's like, oh, well, he's friends with Hasan Piker who loves 9/11 and wants more of it to happen.
On 9/11, you want to say America deserved 9/11? You insult all the families of all the people. You insult all the families of all the victims of 9/11, of all the victims of 9/11 illness.
Yeah.
It is
And also, Zohran already condemned the comment itself. So, and then simultaneously said, we should still talk to people who we disagree with regardless. And this is why the Democrats lose, which is correct. That's why I'm in this weird boat where like on the Graham Plattner stuff, there's like plenty of irredeemable shit in his background. But I do appreciate the fact that liberals are not playing around with this anymore. And I do think that liberals in New York are also not playing around with this shit at all when it comes to Zohran either. Okay? Where they're like, yeah, I don't give a like, what are you talking about? We need to have more of that. We need to have more of that mentality in the base. And we need to have more of that mentality for leftists as well. Okay? My fiance doesn't think you're reprehensible for saying that, understanding the concept you were discussing, and her mom died in the North Tower. This guy's talking out of his ass. Yeah, one unaddressed aspect of this is that I said we deserved it. We did. Except people act as though I am an outsider when they're talking about this. That's the reason why it would never stick on anybody else. And that's the reason why I give examples of how it has not stuck with anyone else.
insult to all New Yorkers.
You're talking about a guy who has not apologized for annihilating the elderly during COVID, a guy who has not apologized for 13 credible sexual assault allegations, including a state trooper, by the way, including a state trooper. That's why I say Andrew Cuomo cop. Okay. And he's over here being like, Zohran needs to apologize for 9/11, but he can't say it directly, even though he did actually laugh at it and also inferred that that's what he meant earlier this morning. So he has to turn around and be like, he needs to apologize more. Bullshit.
He did a press conference weeks ago and asked him to denounce that statement, and he refused. He refused. That is an insult to New Yorkers. And yes, I have a problem.
Why did you laugh when he said he would cheer it?
We're going to do this one at a time.
My friend who's lived in Brooklyn her whole life was saying her dad hears them attack Zohran about you in 9/11, and it makes him like Zohran more because he doesn't want to get canceled for having friends who said dumb shit. I feel like that is more widespread than establishment Dems realize. Yes, I think the broader attitude that the right has demonstrated on their own candidates for actually reprehensible statements, not even like statements that could be defensible to a certain degree if understood within the context, if understood with what like the actual context is, but truly reprehensible statements, the right defends all the time. It should be possible to critique a candidate's ideas without demonizing the candidate himself. To insinuate that a mayoral candidate would celebrate a second 9/11 is beyond disgusting and disgraceful. We all have a responsibility to lower the temperature and restore a measure of civility to our public discourse. Welcome back, Richie Torres. Unimaginably Richie Torres W, it seems. Stranger things have happened. I agree, but I'm worried about not being able to acknowledge past mistakes. Reducing accountability structures would help. Dude, there is no accountability. No one gives a wake up, okay? It's not real. It's just something that you cynically use towards your interlocutors and your opponents, or cynically use to stalk your least favorite Twitch streamers or some shit. What accountability? Andrew Cuomo's literally a 13-time sexual assaulter. What do you mean accountability? The president is literally most likely a that was affiliated with the most prolific sex trafficker of minors. And you're like, oh, accountability. Oh, we got to do accountability. What accountability? What are you talking about? It doesn't exist. If only one side demands this like idiotic version of accountability that doesn't even exist in the real world, and the other side is like, haha, accountability. What a bunch of idiots. We're going to put forward drunk and put them in a head of the Department of Defense and then change the word to Department of War, as a matter of fact. And we're going to laser innocent people on boats. And there is no accountability for any of that. What the do you think there is accountability for? It's even a dumber version of this is what the Constitution says. Okay? It's a dumber version of, well, the Constitution says this is illegal. Okay? Because at least there is an existing pre-existing court structure. You might actually have a Trump appointee or a Reagan appointee, a judge that literally goes, you know what, I am going to defend the law for once and actually create a setback. There is no real mechanism of accountability. It doesn't exist. The voters did not choose to hold Donald Trump accountable for his actions. They elected him. Stop with this nonsense. It's literally just a way for you to get owned all the time. And the right knows this. Okay? The right knows this real well. That's why they cynically weaponize it against the left all the time. Thank God liberals broadly are just like, yeah, we're done with this shit. We're not doing this because obviously the other side is not playing this game at all. So why should we play this game and harm ourselves? Moral infallibility is bullshit, okay? Moral superiority is bullshit. Nobody cares. So in the absence of any sort of like real structure, like the only thing you're doing is basically owning yourself and owning your allies in pursuit of this false moral purity that doesn't exist. Especially because when you are easily duped, easily tricked in this way, you can be tricked in even circumstances that doesn't require any sort of real accountability.